Hello, everybody, and welcome to my top 5 tips for beginners in Kingdoms Reborn. So my first tip has to do with city placement. There are 3 things you need to keep in mind when figuring out where you're going to put your city. The first thing is you need trees. You need trees so you can cut them down and get wood. So 1, you can build buildings in the first place, and 2, there's some important early game buildings, such as the charcoal burner, that you're going to need to feed with wood, otherwise you're going to have a really tough time. The second thing you need to be able to put your city near is mountains, because there are certain stone deposits that exist that you can harvest to kind of avoid having to put down a quarry early game. But eventually you're going to need a quarry, and you're going to need it relatively early in order to get a reliable source of stone, because without stone, it's also very difficult to expand your city. The mountain doesn't necessarily need to be right next to your city centers, anything like that. It can be maybe a province away. But you're going to want to make sure that you have some source of stone that you can get relatively early to feed the construction of your city. The final thing you're going to want to take into account when you're putting down your city is you're going to want to hit Control F to open the fertility map mode. And you're going to want to find a place near a couple of splotches of green. For a high fertility area is a place where a farm is more productive, and a lot of resources in Kingdoms Reborn can only be gotten through farming. So if you don't put your city next to some fertile lands, you're gonna have a really tough time. My second tip is that your farm should be 64 tiles, or as close as you can get to 64 tiles without going over. So 64 tiles is the most amount a farm can be farmed by one person. It's the largest farm one person can farm. If you go to 65 tiles, you'll have 2 people trying to farm the farm, and it'll be a lot less efficient per person. So you want to have as big of a farm as possible, thus, 64 or 63 or something like that is going to produce the most amount you can per person for your farms. My third tip is to don't forget about the upgrades tree. There's kind of a tendency for a lot of people, including me, to research in the regular tech tree and get a bunch of new buildings and stuff like that. But the upgrades tree is really where a lot of the efficiency is had in Kingdoms Reborn. There's a lot of really great techs, and it was recently buffed in the most recent patch. So for example, you can get 10% wood cutting per level. Here you can get 5% farming, and you can get that all the way up to 25% by researching it 5 times. Building combo is one of my favorite things to research. It increases the efficiency of basically your entire city. Any building that you have at least 2 of, including farms, gets a bonus. And then, of course, trade relations. Decreasing trade fee is the most powerful thing in Kingdoms Reborn. It's the most broken sort of mechanic. And so it's usually a really good idea to upgrade the trade relations as well. So definitely don't forget about the upgrades tree. It's a great way to kind of squeeze a little bit more efficiency out of your city and make growing a lot easier. My fourth tip is to do not, under any circumstances, run out of tools. And here's why. When you run out of food, your people don't become less efficient at working. They don't move slower, work worse. They just become hungry, and you have some time to try and dig yourself out of the hole you got yourself into, right? You can throw down some food buildings, you can import food, you can kind of fix the problem. If you run out of fuel, like coal, it's a similar situation. You just kind of need to survive until spring, and then things will warm up, and you can kind of fix the coal problem, and you have a good chunk of time to do it before it gets winter again. If you run out of medicine, it's a bit more dangerous of an issue, but early game, I find myself relying a lot on medicinal herb farms, and so if you can survive till harvest, then all your sick people can consume medicinal herbs and go back to normal, and then you have some time to figure out your medicine issue. The real problem with stone tools is when you run out of stone tools, your people will start walking slower. They will also start to be less productive, and that includes the people making the stone tools, right? So it becomes kind of a cyclical thing, and it's a good way to enter into a death spiral in your city. And so I really think running out of stone tools is the most dangerous thing that can happen to a city early game. So make sure that you are constantly checking your stone tool production and consumption so that you don't run out. On this patch, you can kind of get away with maybe 80 people per stone tool shop. If you are playing at a higher difficulty, though, you'll need more stone tool shops per city. And then eventually, you're going to want to switch over to getting iron tools from the blacksmith, which is just a more efficient form of producing tools, and iron tools are actually just straight better than stone tools. So, but yeah, early game, just make sure you don't run out of any type of tool, because that will be problematic. My final piece of advice is to take it slow. There's a lot of ways to like boom your population in Kingdoms Reborn. You can put down a couple immigration offices, build a bunch of houses, and really explode. But a smaller city with high-level houses is going to produce a lot more science and get more income than a larger city with fewer houses. So this level 6 house produces 30 science. This level 3 house produces half as much science. So if you have a bunch of like low-level houses versus someone who has a fewer higher-level houses, you're going to want to be the person with the higher-level houses, especially since as you build your city in Kingdoms Reborn, the bigger your city gets, the more travel time your people are going to have to travel to get from point A to point B. And so your city is going to naturally become less efficient. And so if you can keep your city condensed and smaller, it's going to be a more efficient city. Now, obviously, there are certain texts that force you to get bigger, right? So Middle Ages, you need 10 houses minimum. Enlightenment Age, you need 30 houses minimum. But really try to limit getting too big too quickly, because it's a good way to kind of forget about something, run out of a resource, and then your population collapses back down. So yeah, those are my top 5 tips for Kingdoms Reborn. Make sure to subscribe. We'll be producing more content. This game's in early access, so things are constantly changing, and it's always a really fun thing to jump into a new patch and figure stuff out. So yeah, I will see you guys in another video.